In the not-too-distant future, a revolution is brewing, one that will change the very fabric of our existence. It's a tale of cells that hold the key to unlocking the mysteries of life itself. Let us venture into the unknown, for in this age of stem cells, anything is possible.
I've seen some beautiful flowers.
Merry Christmas, Jan!
Merry Christmas.
It's the end of the year. Can you believe it?
I cannot, but I love this time of year because it's equally, to me, equally reflective and exciting, and it's people focused and all the good things. And you can wear things like this and people just congratulate you.
Well, congratulations on 2 years, pretty much almost 2 years of podcasts.
Yes.
Our podcast. And so much has happened. So I thought we used to publish annual reports for our company, and annual reports having nothing to do with financial stuff, more business stuff, but more a tally of what we've been able to accomplish, numbers of cells made, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. And so I thought rather than publish it and have to take time doing that, we'll just do it over this podcast and give a rundown of the year.
And then we can celebrate it because
Sure.
That's one of the other wonderful things is if you've had a great year, and it has been a tremendous year here, you go back and, this happened in January and the spring, and you get all that excitement all over again.
We decided to pull up the top 3 milestones or events that occurred this year. And I will start with the first, which was the trip to Washington in February. The random call I got to go visit with the Secretary of Health and Human Services to talk about stem cell policy. That was probably the most memorable, most out-of-body experiences of my life. Yes.
Yes, that was exciting. That was exciting. And the preparation for that trip, getting our arms around what all had been accomplished through various programs at Hope Biosciences to date. And if you haven't seen the episode that's dedicated to that trip, shameless podcast plug, you can find it at the link that we'll drop in the notes, and definitely check that out. It's the one with the secretary on the cover with Donna, so you can't miss it. But yes, it felt very much... It felt like an important moment of growth to be able to have your voice solicited, to be able to input, into a much larger, broad-reaching conversation than what is happening in our immediate sphere and the research that's going on right here, right now.
And to be included in that conversation with other very notable voices in the field. I had a chance to meet my, a person I've looked up to for a long time, Dr. Anthony Atala. And fast forward a few months after that, we actually got to interview him. I had the privilege of interviewing him on another podcast plug on the Dr. Atala episode for Stem Cell Revolution that was filmed at CTAC. And so it's just amazing how everything comes together.
Everything comes together. And apart from the kind of fangirling, I think we're both and everybody on the team was doing over, wow, look where we are, look what, look who you're getting to meet, look what the conversation is. To me, it was deeply humbling because sometimes I know it's tempting to meet, like anything else, like parenting, like any other kind of work, you get caught in sometimes the day-to-day. And when you stand back and you go, okay, big picture, for every 100 patients we know, there are 1,000 people in need that we don't. And there are 10,000 people who will be diagnosed in the next 10 to 20 years. And how do we get what's happening today to those 10,000 people? How do we, and it's like this, it's through conversations and relationships and events like this. And so to be at the table where you can see a pathway to those, hypothetical 10,000 people is just so deeply humbling.
It is.
And invigorating. It gives you new life.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well said. Well, so what's the second thing? What was I thinking of?
The building.
Oh, a little.
Hey,
a little thing. So the 4 walls that we're sitting in right now, this building has been the home for Hope Biosciences for the last 8 years. We were leasing this building, and this year we finally acquired it, completely took it over. So we needed a lot of space, and so that's why it came at the perfect time. And the previous building owners were willing to sell, but it worked out, and we are now the proud owners of a building. And with that, you get to do your own stuff. And so the building owners forgot to take their statues, so they took that. We did that. We planted some new trees, and we got to quite literally put our handprints into the building, and it's just it's an important step for our entire team. You know, settled. We're getting settled.
You're settled. Well, and that was what struck me watching the whole process unfold is, it feels so much like a home. It feels so much like when you transition from renting to owning, and then you go, wow, sure, there are stresses and a different level of responsibility, but you can make it really exactly what you need it to be. And there's such a joy in that process, and everybody in the home is part of that process. And that's very much what happened here. And what is happening here.
Yes, and much like buying a house, the moment you buy it, the roof starts leaking and everything starts falling. The trees start dying. Like, all of that is happening, right? Yes, we're arguing about what tile to put in the bathroom and all this. And we're making some major renovations around here, increasing lab space. Our QC department has grown a lot, and we've are doing this building will look very different in the coming months, but it's all good progress.
It's great, and it's joyful.
Yeah.
It's really, really joyful, to walk out and see everybody gathered around a tree looking at leaves. What do I think is wrong with it? What do I think? And then come back a few weeks later and it's thriving, and it's joyful. I think people feel a sense of ownership in it, and it's invigorating.
Yeah. Well, our employees will finally have some room and some space, some elbow space.
Yeah.
Like we're,
Yes.
if anyone knows, especially when the foundation the foundation side was made, it really limited the amount of space for our employees. So they're either eating lunch at their desk, or they're quite literally elbow to elbow in the break room that we have. And it's in the corner facing the parking lot, and we're on this beautiful water that no one can enjoy. So we're going to invest in some space for our people. So finally they'll have some spaces to spread their wings.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
And what was the big thing in 2025?
Our mat. And this is my most dear memory because I was in HEB, as any good Texan would be, right?
Of course.
Where else would you be? Where
Yes.
else would you be?
Yeah.
When you called and said, you're never going to get, this is what happened. And I had no idea. And I didn't even try and guess because you sounded so excited. So I was standing there with my cart, emotional, honestly. I was emotional about it because it's having seen what it takes to get to this RMAT point, which I need to stop in the excitement, and we'll explain what that is and why it matters. But this was my favorite moment of the year for sure, was getting that call from you.
Well, you got a call. I got a Slack notification. Redeema had sent me a Slack notification saying our RMAT got approved. I actually cut and paste the conversation because it was so funny. Because I thought she was messing with me. What is the date? Is it April Fool's because you're messing with? This is such a bad thing to mess with somebody about. But so the Regenerative Medicine Advanced Therapy designation is a designation that's given out by FDA for products that meet an unmet need and have shown great promise. And if through the designation, it allows for quick review, which can lead to accelerated approval and priority approval. And that just means that the potential for this treatment to get to patients faster is there. And for multiple sclerosis, MS stands for multiple sclerosis, it's the first RMAT that's ever been given out. And so for our team, it was a major milestone because it checks off many boxes, right? It validates where the technology is at this point. It validates the safety, and now finally even the efficacy, at least the preliminary efficacy. And it was seen in 24 patients. We actually took that data to ECTRIMS this year. The principal investigator, Dr. Lotfi, presented a poster at ECTRIMS this year, and I think it was in Barcelona. It
was in Barcelona in September.
In September, yeah. So he presented that, and I think it was received very well. We are still waiting for publication. We're still in peer review. Yes, and I'll share the stats for our podcast at the end. But interestingly, episode 21, which was the censorship one, which talked about our inability to publish quick enough. That conversation was the most watched conversation, or the most popular episode. I think that's what it was, right? The most popular episode.
Seems to have struck a chord. And I know I would have scolded my daughter for rolling her eyes as much as I just did, but I mean, yeah, what else can you do? It's such leading edge research that even FDA goes, we're going to help move this along.
Yeah.
But I can tell you, when that paper comes out, it's going to be really worth reading, and we're going to talk about it.
And you know what we're going to do in 2026, is that the right year? Yeah, 2026, is we're going to do something totally unconventional. We will live broadcast our results. I think that's exactly what we should do. I mean, it's going to be a totally nerdy session, a very long, tedious, probably boring for many, highly technical, statistical stuff. But I think it's necessary to go over in great detail every data point, every data set that was collected in the trial, how it was collected, on all the nuances, and give time for people to process the data and ask questions, and do this in a live forum. And with the internet, we can do that and invite everyone on a global level to dissect the data and go through it with us together. Yeah.
Well, and I think we're seeing a hunger for that. We're seeing a thirst for it. People do have questions. They want firsthand information. And then, of course, following on, the Nerd Fest that I'm already super excited about, we'll have a more popular conversation so that people who want a more approachable language will also know exactly what we're talking about. But I can't wait. It's going to be awesome.
So those were the top 3 moments for this year. But
can we get a bonus moment? If you had it was such a big year.
the bonus moment was a major milestone, but it is one of those major milestones that is dripping in failure. So let me explain. I forget what month was it that we got JIA approved.
It was the end of last year.
Oh, it was the end of last year. Okay.
Tail end of last year.
So our cells have never been used officially in a pediatric clinical trial. Our cells have been used in a bunch of kids, but those protocols were essentially single patient expanded access, mostly for compassionate use. And compassionate use goes into a different pathway than a traditional clinical trial. And in clinical trials for kids, the requirement is much higher in terms of you have to have proven safety and you have to have almost proven efficacy. You have to show a benefit off the bat. They have to know that this is going to be helpful before you even begin the research. And so that threshold is so high that it's been impossible to get a pediatric study off the ground. And we tried for many things, especially for cerebral palsy. That was one of the first that we had done, because cerebral palsy, we had treated a child with CP who had done very well. And we used that data to ask for a study, and that got rejected. And so anyway, with the juvenile idiopathic arthritis, we thought it would be a home run, because we had a wonderful study for rheumatoid arthritis in adults, and that translated as your preliminary data set for efficacy for children. So when we got it approved, it was an epic moment for us. And then this year, in 2025, we have been actively enrolling. We've enrolled for basically a year. And I wondered, are we doing a poor job getting the word out? We had made videos about it. We talked about it online. We did as much as we possibly could. We tried to engage with local rheumatologists, pediatric rheumatologists. At the end of the day, we couldn't get a single child enrolled. And with any study, we're always in a difficult spot deciding whether you continue or you don't. And all of our adult studies have done so well. I mean, it does take some time to recruit, but generally people are very excited about stem cells. They want them. And so we have long lines for many trials that we execute here. So the adult world looked very different, but for pediatrics, I don't know, maybe it was the conversation with the parents that was lacking. I don't know what all the reasons are, but we were not able to recruit a single patient.
I think we're learning about trial design and what will be most supportive of parents and families, and I'm putting on my mom hat, which I know that we both share that hat as well in this conversation, because another thing we talked about is, when we know that there's a community demand for the technology, right? We see that. We've successfully and safely treated any number of pediatric patients, and we continue to. And the families are quite happy. But when we talk about a trial and we talk about the requirements of getting a school-age person, right, to a clinical trial site for a certain number of times, for a certain amount of, I think there's a logistical component that I really look forward to us finessing and refining in the years to come, because it's definitely not, and I hope I'm not speaking too boldly, not the last time we'll design a pediatric trial, because we know there's a need, and we know that, it just tugs on your heartstrings, right? Kids in pain and kids with quality of life impacted, and this technology has something to offer into that space, and so we're not going to give up on it. But it's like anything else, we're learning, and that's why we're having conversations and public conversations. Onward we go.
So what I heard in the grapevine, and I don't know whether any of this is true, it's hard to validate because you have to have conversations with the physicians themselves, but we had a lot of eyes on our posts and some of the video content that we made about the JIA trial. Mm-hmm. And many parents went to their pediatric rheumatologist. But the conversation tended to stop there, where what I heard was, at least at some of the leading institutions here, that the drugs for JIA, there are so many now. So many drugs on the market that are doing a good job keeping symptoms controlled, that they didn't feel like this was worth the added risk or this was worth entertaining. I don't know, again, if that's true or not, but if you're a parent with a child with JIA, please give us your input. We really want to engage with the community. We did a lot with the Arthritis Foundation locally, and we tried to engage with families, but at the end of the day, I think we did the best that we could. And we ultimately, our board at the Hope Biosciences Research Foundation, they made the decision in the last board meeting to abandon the trial. So that indication will be abandoned. Yeah.
But telescoping out a little bit from an organizational perspective, watching the way that this year has unfolded with this trial in particular, gives me such tremendous encouragement, because a lot of times you see so many egos get involved, right? And people feel there's a determination to get through what they think is the solution or what they think is the answer, and they try and hammer it through, and at some point it stops serving people, right? Whereas I am going to speak proudly of what we're doing here. We have a group of people at the highest levels of leadership continually assessing, seeking input, asking, how can we do it better? And putting a timeline for assessment, going, you know what? We are going to look honestly and candidly, and we are not giving up. But we are going to learn, right? We are going to learn, and we're going to get better, and we're going to develop, different ideas. And I think that kind of humility is a key to organizational longevity. And so, yeah, I'm proud of us for this year. I'm proud of us, and I can't wait for the day that we have a trial and there are families, with kids in need lined up outside that door. We will be the first ones on door duty.
Well, speaking of that, when we acquired the building, we were preparing to welcome families, and we thought, well, if a child is getting an infusion, where does mom and dad sit? Where does brother and sister play? Like, all of these spaces have to exist, which currently don't. So our architectural plans included family suites for infusions, so everyone could have a fun, comfortable experience. Well, now that we've abandoned this, do we go back on our plans? The answer is no. We're gonna build it as we planned it, and still, we still see kids, and we still and serve families, so it'll still fill a need. But I don't. In one way, I look at it, Jan. It could have been the same as MS and Parkinson's, in the sense that if the JIA trial had one patient enrolled, let's say there was one child enrolled, and we're talking about an entire year going by with a single child enrolled, what would we do? And I can tell you what the answer to that is. The answer is we would continue the trial. We would never abandon a trial if a patient was in there. But it's one patient, right? And at the end of the day, without a full trial, you would fail. But just knowing us, I know we wouldn't fail a family. So we would go through a whole trial. And in Parkinson's and MS, it started that way. All of our clinical trials are logarithmic when it comes to enrollment. It starts off one patient, maybe one patient every 3 months. Then it goes to one patient every 2 months and 1 month, and it starts to climb like this. And towards the end, you get the highest enrollment, and where you actually have to reject people because we just have too many. But in one way, I'm glad that we didn't give up on anyone. So that's the bittersweet thing.
Well, and logistically, I'm going to speak professionally and then extraordinarily personally in my own language, right? Professionally, I see us becoming daily more equipped to handle not only families of pediatric patients, but we have patients in the door every week who require full-time caregivers, who require, so you mentioned having a space to rest, having a space to play. That's applicable now, right? In the people we're privileged to meet. And then hyper personally, God has a plan. And how many times over the years do you look back and go, thank goodness this went in the order that it went, right? And now you have there's this beautiful new building, there's this space, there's invigorated people. I'm excited to see what conversations come. And I think that's been the story of hope. It's, it's not even up and down, it's diagonal, it's all over the place. It's so exciting.
Well, that's why they say hindsight is 20/20.
Yes,
that's why they say
so we're
that.
going to take this ride, and a lot of kids with us.
And I've always said that this place is built. Our foundation is built on failure. And one day, if we ever build a building, we're going to take all of our rejection letters, all of our, all of that stuff, and we're going to put it into the foundation, and we'll build a building. Yep.
Okay, the snarky part of me is like, well, that's going to raise it really high above sea level because there is a lot, as much as we have time to talk about. Yes, perseverance and joy in it all.
Yeah.
It's going to be perfect.
So in terms of progress this year with clinical trials, this year was not a year where we made a ton of applications. Typically every year we are applying for so many trials at a time, and trying to get as many authorizations as we can for the upcoming year. But this year was really the year of execution. We had a lot of fires burning, and we had to execute on all of them. And so one of the follow-up to the MS-01 trial, which was the trial that got the RMAT designation, well, if the treatment is that successful, what do you do about the placebo? Because in any placebo-controlled trial, you have a group that gets the treatment, and then you have a group that doesn't get the treatment. So what happened to that group? So MS-02 was developed in 2025 and executed upon, and I think we're at the tail end of MS-02. So all the placebo group receiving the treatment. So now we operate knowing that the treatment worked. And so that's why this is not considered an official clinical trial. It's just it's more compassionate use because we're compassionately serving the placebo group. But what we are observing in the placebo group, knowing that they are getting the treatment, is in line with what we've seen in MS-01. One major differential is that the people in the placebo group over the last 2 years, because the execution of the MS-01 trial was 2 years, so you can see that over the course of years they have declined significantly, which is unfortunately the tragedy of the design of placebo-controlled trials, which I hope FDA will change in the coming years. But through that decline, it takes a lot more cells to see the same level of effect. So that is something that we're observing right now, that at a certain point, what we are treating was remitting relapsing multiple sclerosis, but when it progresses, it becomes primary progressive, secondary progressive, and some of these patients fell into that category. So when you fall into those categories, it becomes increasingly more difficult to treat in that you need a lot more cells and probably at a higher frequency to achieve the same kind of treatment effect. So that's what we're learning. It's not impossible to treat these advanced cases, but it is certainly better to treat it sooner rather than later. Yeah. So that was MS. And then exciting news coming up this week. We have one of the largest Parkinson's stem cell programs in the country, 6 trials for Parkinson's. And the 4th trial, which is our largest 60-patient randomized controlled trial, was finished a few months ago, and the database has been locked, and the statisticians will report on the data this week. So I am on pins and needles. I think we all are trying to see what's going to happen.
So excited about this because this was an allogeneic, so a donor stem cell trial. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the criticisms we hear most often about cellular therapeutics in general is this conception that they're expensive, they have to be expensive, and in reality, a donor treatment, manufacturing costs are lower, right? Just everything, the cost of just about everything comes down. And so you have a pathway toward a much wider accessibility that's just really, really, really exciting. And it allows an opportunity for people who couldn't be banked in a conventional bank due to, specific disease conditions that would exclude them from banking to have access to cell therapy. So I cannot wait for this one. And I hope I'm not an HEB when you, although if I am, that'd be another great story. You call and say what it says.
In PDO3, we tested using the patient's own stem cells. Mm-hmm. And so the question we were trying to answer was whether Parkinson's patients, elder, and they're pretty advanced in age, most of them, do they have good stem cells? But unfortunately, we didn't answer that question because biologically, we couldn't see a difference between their cells and control cells, which are healthy cells. They all look the same. Especially when you culture cells through our process, at the end of the day, everyone gets the same thing. That's essentially what we specialize in. It's the standardization of treatments so that you know that what you're receiving is going to be potent and is going to be made to a specific standard. So, in Parkinson's, it was whether their own cells would work versus using a donor cell. But the treatment schedule was different. So we weren't comparing apples to apples. The treatment group in the group using their own cells was receiving cells every 2 months. And every 2 months, we knew, based on brain imaging that we did for previous Parkinson's patients, wasn't enough to maintain the metabolism in the brain. So we had to dose monthly. So the allogeneic trial that we'll hear the results for this week is a monthly schedule. And we think that that's the way it needs to be, at least from what we've learned from the images. So we're all crossing our fingers, hoping that this will pan out the way we hope it will. But we don't know. I don't know. I really don't know. People ask, like, surely you know. It's like, no, I don't know. I really don't know. Yeah, I really don't know. Yeah. So,
but this week we will.
This week we will. And you know what we'll do? We will release, because similarly to what we did for COVID, post-COVID 02, we should release, what do you call that?
Top line results. And we did it for post-COVID and we did it for MS. And those are the first two to date.
So we should do that.
Yeah.
We should do that. Yeah. Okay. So you'll all find out in a week. Okay. We got Crohn's approved. That was a big trial. That was also, I think, an over 50 patient randomized controlled trial. We got that approved. We're currently enrolling for that. So if you know anybody with Crohn's, the participants in the study and the way we design these studies is to allow patients to stay on their medication. Well, how do you know if it's not their medication or if it's the cells? We know because despite the fact that you're receiving your medication and you have to be on the medication, whatever you're currently on, you have to be on it for a consistent period of time. But based on that, you still have symptoms. So long as you still have symptoms, that means your medication is not working as well as it should, then you can enter the trial as long as you stay on your course of medication. Yeah. So it's a good trial. And this week, or was it end of last week? All my weeks run together. Do the years get faster for you?
They do. And this time of year, because it's exciting and you start, looking at the whole body of the year and you go, wow, and you're closing things up and tying bows on things and, it blends together. But if it's MSA, it's last week. And this is one that was very dear to my heart, multiple system atrophy. I will tell you, it's not a condition that I knew much about until you shared with me, hey, this is where, we have suffering individuals. We have an interest actually out of Canada, which is quite noteworthy as well.
Oh my gosh. Did I mention that we got our first approval in Canada?
You did.
Yes. First approval in Canada. To get ourselves, we'll cross the border very soon and serve a patient in Canada. Health Canada was not easy.
Navigating that process was absolutely an accomplishment
in some ways,
2025.
In some ways, much more difficult than the United States. The United States has regulations that are written out, and that's the law. That's the code. So long as you follow that, you have a blueprint. In Canada, it's different. What they write and what they say and what they end up doing are two different things, and you can't get an answer from anybody. And so that's been that was quite the journey with Health Canada. And it made me feel like we are so lucky in the United States. First and foremost, if you are very sick, and this is, what we were petitioning was for a very sick person. If you are very sick in the United States, you do have options, and quick options. Expanded access being one of them. That's FDA's compassionate use program. They will give you an answer within 30 days. And if that doesn't work, you have right to try. And if your doctor signs off on right to try, you have access to pretty much any investigational therapy, as long as you can get the manufacturer to release it to you. And that requires no regulatory review. So you bypass all of that. You bypass any bureaucratic review that's necessary. And so it gives people a chance. It gives people a fighting chance. In Canada, there is no such avenue. You must go through the government. Now, they have come up with laws where you can have a right to end your life, but when it comes to sustaining your life, that's a different ballgame. And I just felt like we are very blessed here. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, and I was grateful because as I learned about MSA and began having actual dialogue with people and families, who this is part of their story. It's heartbreaking. It's a progressive neurological disease that, its timeline is short. We're talking 5 to 10 years from diagnosis, usually to death. And so to see a work about to commence in this particular condition is, again, it's one of those really humbling moments where you go, this is why we're here. Yeah. In some sense.
So this is a small clinical trial, but it is highly impactful. It will be the first time that multiple intrathecal in combination with IV administration of cells will be administered. Intrathecal is directly into the cerebral spinal fluid to allow the cells to circulate in that space with more direct access to the brain, with the IV administration on top of it. And so this combined approach is what we think is going to be necessary to treat a very aggressive condition like MSA. And we've treated a lot of MSA patients through the Right to Try program over the past few years, and we've noticed that they've all had very consistently either stayed the same or improved. And that is a big deal with this indication, because if you can catch it early, you could really stop the disease in its tracks. It does take a lot of cells, but it's not impossible. And so there's hope for MSA. We're excited to start that trial. It just got approved, so we'll probably begin getting the patients in later this month. Yeah.
Yes. So when I think about research in 2025, I mean, the DoD and scientific research, those are still hot topics as we look toward a new year.
And thank God for that funding cuts didn't affect our DoD projects.
That's the burning question is, we have not yet been affected. How are things going?
So we have the Department of Defense. I don't know if it's now called the Department of War. Anyway.
Well, it is on social media.
Okay.
I don't know. Again.
I don't know where the checks come from, but okay. So the DoD, what was the DoD studies? We had 2 active studies. The first for traumatic brain injury is still recruiting. So if you know anyone with mild to moderate or moderate to severe, I can't remember. You'll have to look on clinicaltrials.gov. But the Hope Biosciences traumatic brain injury trial is still recruiting. That's a phase 2 trial. It is recruiting at UT Health Houston and recruiting at UT Health San Antonio. So 2 locations. I think they're about halfway through recruiting, so there are a few more spots open there. The other trial that we have not formally announced because the first patient has not yet been enrolled, but I can talk about it. It is a 3-center trial for the UT Health Houston, University of California, San Francisco, and the University of Alabama, we are providing for the first time ever, we have developed a product for acute use, so meaning immediate use. Now, everyone generally knows that Hope Biosciences specializes in delivering fresh stem cells. We actually don't believe in frozen cells because the thawing of frozen cells and direct administration into patients leaves a big black box when it comes to understanding what's the viability and what's the potency of those cells. We've been uncomfortable with that approach. So we've always taken the fresh approach. Fresh is best. We get cells out pretty much overnighted to the site for administration. So cells can be quickly harvested and directly administered. That's our approach. But acute kidney injury, a condition I really didn't know anything about, but I knew is very severe. And it happens in severe burn patients or severe trauma patients. And it's I guess the thing that if it goes, you will go. Like everything goes downhill from there. So preventing acute kidney injury is critical in trauma care. So that's the juncture that we're trying to serve. Now, I don't know. If you were to ask me, would cells help in this area? I don't know. But there are people much smarter than me and much more experienced than me who truly believe that this will be impactful for these patients and will provide a clinical benefit. From a biological standpoint, I've always wondered, are our cells able to work that quickly? Will they be able to provide or secrete whatever they need to so quickly that we can keep a person from going into complete kidney failure? I don't know. We'll see what happens. But in order to serve a patient who just had, because you have a tight window, apparently from the time you get hit by a bus to the time you get acute kidney injury is could be hours. So that time frame, there's not enough time for us to make cells for that. We get a call. It's not like we can just start manufacturing cells for that. It takes us weeks to make cells. And so they need a ready product, in this case, it's not off the shelf per se, it's in a tank. It's frozen. It's taking the frozen approach. But we essentially had to start from the ground level and create a brand new product. And the question was, could we develop a frozen product that could be efficacious? And so that's what we've been working on. And we did it. So that was actually a really big thing in 2025. I would say one of the biggest accomplishments for Hope Bio was the development of a frozen product that was consistent. Consistent in after thawing, the potency of the product was still maintained. Viability is one of those things. Well, if the cells are alive, it'll work. No, the cells are alive but can be non-functional, right? So viability is not what we were measuring. We were really measuring whether the cells were maintain their potency compared to fresh cells. And so we achieved that. We were pleased with what we were able to validate. And so that is why we agreed to participate in this acute kidney injury project. And so we hope we can provide our country the cells it needs to be able to defend itself against what may come. Yeah.
I'm very eager for this trial to get underway for a lot of reasons, and very eager to see how the technology does. And again, we talked earlier in our conversation today about organizational humility. This is another prime example. We are advocates of fresh cells, but there are people in need, and when you're asked, can you give it a try? Yeah, we'll give it a try.
Give it a try.
Give it a try.
Yeah. I have no idea what will happen. But my attitude was that way for traumatic brain injury.
Yeah.
I was like, give me a chronic disease. Can someone give me chronic disease? Because that's right up my alley. Acute injury is not my thing. Because it's just everything's happening so fast. People are crashing. And I have trauma from COVID, right? From hospitalized cases of COVID. My goodness, people were dying in the waiting rooms. We witnessed these things during that time.
Well, and yet, the TBI trials, I mean, going through UT Health Houston, certainly don't want to speak to their data or their results, but what we've seen, well, first of all, there's a tremendous amount of imaging in those trials because of where they're taking place. And so we see from the MRIs, we see from the PET scans, we see from all these biomarkers, those are some jaw-dropping improvements in those patients and those cases and those stories. And so, yeah, I mean, some of the places where we've been most like, well, there's a need, and yes, we will try, have yielded some incredible things. So I'll be praying this is the same. And like everything else, can't wait.
We'll see what happens.
Wait to see what 2026 holds.
And I swear we do these podcasts for us so that we document where we are in time. And that way we can look back. Do you remember 10 years ago what we said?
Yes.
So let's talk about numbers. Numbers are always fun. We used to do annual reports with numbers, how many cells we've done. And normally you're the one that has to compile the numbers, but I know we are filming really last minute here. So I compiled them this morning. I had to ask production. We couldn't divide it by clinical trials and right to try and all these things. So I'll just give you some gross numbers. This year, our facility, Hope Biosciences, released 1,543 batches of cells. Okay, now batches is not a giant batch. A batch is for one person, but one treatment. So 1,543. And that equates to approximately 308 billion cells. Now, it's a lot more because that's the official dose that we have to make, but we always overculture for QC testing and all kinds of things. So it's a giant number, is it not?
Well, and what makes me laugh is it's going to be more giant by the time this is, filming closes in an hour because they're culturing upstairs right now, right? And their shipments going out every day. So yes, it is a giant number. And what a testament that, the team can be developing new things, executing on what it has, growing, developing new things, staying creative in terms of R&D and what people need and how we may be able to step into that space. And it's a huge testament to capacity.
Yeah. And do you know what that comes out to in flasks? So for those that don't know, we hand culture cells here. Okay. We don't culture in giant vats. A lot of people do that. Cells are not happy in giant vats. You can prove me wrong, but we hand culture cells because we can see them. They're clear. They're essentially petri dishes, the shape of a flask. But guess how many flasks we used in 2025?
How many?
It's crazy. It's about 18,000 flasks. Yeah. 18,000 flasks. So this year we had the most bankers we've ever had. That means commercially people wanting to bank their cells proactively for use in the future. And anytime you bank with us, you give us a tablespoon of fat, we're going to turn that into over 1,000 treatments that can be delivered on demand when you need them in the future. And so we banked the most in 2025. And we have the Hope Book of World Records for the person receiving the human being, and I think globally, because there isn't anyone else who has documented this, but the person who has received the most stem cells or the most administration of autologous, their own stem cells in the world. Yes.
Yes.
And we filmed that moment. It was with William Kao when he received his 100th infusion. That's 100 infusions of 200 million cells. That was achieved this year. For those wanting to beat him, he's already at 120, I think. So good luck. Good luck beating him there. But amazing. And proof that the repetitive use of cells is safe, at least in this individual. And the fact that we can make them, I think it's more of a testament to the manufacturing capacity of stored cells or banked cells and usability for the future.
Well, and those cells are quality tested every treatment. And so the quality levels on that 120th treatment are the same as the first treatment. And so, yes, again, this year to me feels like an incredible validation, exhibition, display, whatever word we want to use, right, of capacity, of the technology's capacity. And it's really, really exciting.
And for those of you wondering, why on earth would an individual need 100 stem cell infusions? This person has terminal cancer, which is why we embarked on this treatment plan. But he is still alive and well and with us. So, yeah. A great holiday surprise.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So I think the best way to end this episode is to
Please
talk
don't
about...
say with a song.
Oh, no. With a song? We could sing.
You can sing.
Let's
I'll
sing.
cheer you on. You have a beautiful voice.
No. Well, we have to talk about this podcast because we joke all the time that nobody listens to this. And we are insulting our audience, Jan. Because, let me tell you something. In 2025, we had a 999% increase in our audience from last year. And thank you to Spotify Wrapped, who compiled all these numbers for us. And these numbers come from Spotify. I'm sure we have an additional audience on YouTube and everywhere else. But there was also a 950% increase in followers. And that's 999% increase in listening time. Even if we had a minute of listening time.
I know. I was like, wait, where did we start? But we will take it.
We definitely had more than a minute of listening time in 2024. But isn't that incredible?
Well, Donna, I remember, a year ago, and I don't know how flattering this is to us, but we were whispering in a corner going, do you think anybody cares but us? Like, we love to talk about, all of these things that we talk about. And it turns out people do. I will say, though, I think the incredible quality of the guests that you had this year definitely worked in favor of the podcast.
It definitely helped, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
because we had some phenomenal people, which isn't in those metrics, but I think means something too, that folks are going, yes, this is a vehicle that's worth time to come on and talk to, people and families and communities. And yeah, this is awesome. So let's see if we can do it again.
Well, you're not going to believe this.
Okay.
Now, this stat you're not going to believe. We are within the top 25% of videos on Spotify.
We are not.
Yeah.
Are we seriously?
We are. That means Spotify doesn't have many videos.
Do you know what I flashed to? Okay, when I was young, I went to the Smithsonian, and my uncle at dinner that night said, well, what did you learn? And I thought, I panicked. I was very young, and I thought, oh my gosh, I was there all day, but let me recall. I wish we could ask people, what did you learn? What stood out? What interests you? And they'd probably look equally as panicked. But again, we will take it.
But it gets even better.
Okay.
Jan, it gets even better. In 2025, we are a rising star, which means this year our show's growth outpaced 98% of other shows.
Are you serious?
We are also a 2025 marathon show. Fans listen to us longer than 74% of other shows.
Oh my goodness.
You better watch out, Joe Rogan. Okay.
That's amazing. Also, shout out to producer, sound editor, all the things. Taylor Smith. Yes,
Taylor Smith.
Who's a one-man band
show.
making it happen. Yes, yes.
And get this. We are a 2025 most shared show, receiving more shares than 80% of other shows.
That's amazing. I feel so
Can you
liked
believe
right
that?
now. No,
I can't believe that.
no, I kind of can.
I can't believe that. I kept scrolling back and forth to see if this was real.
I love that.
So thank you to our audience. We joke that you don't exist, but clearly you do. And it we were so surprised to see this, and it is motivating. I think people don't understand how stressful it is to content create, right? Especially on a schedule. It is very time consuming and very difficult to do, and there's a million reasons why you should stop and give up, but these stats tell us to keep going. So 2026 will make it an exciting year full of great content. So whether you are watching us, whether you're investing in banking yourselves, all that helps support us. And speaking of numbers, the tariffs have hit us pretty bad. We have a lot of the reagents and plasticware and all kinds of stuff that we use here in the lab, although we source from the United States, are often brought in from other places as well. And all of that affects the end of the day cost. And so our costs, just as we see in the grocery store, have gone up significantly in our lab operations. And this year we struggled taking even a loss for the banking services and things that we provide here because we didn't want to change pricing, particularly in a difficult time like this. But in 2026, banking prices are going up. If you need a great Christmas gift, give the gift of banking. It helps us and helps us get the word out. It's all part of the same thing.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. It's a privilege to be here. And next year's going to be fun and a lot of other things. I can't wait.
Yes. So we'll see you in 2026.
Yes. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.